I never thought I'd end up here, feeling what I feel, and especially not for my own son. My name is Rachel. I'm 45 years old, divorced for the last 10 years, and life has quietly molded me into a mix of resilience and solitude. These days, I teach yoga at a fitness center in downtown Austin. People often tell me I don't look my age. Lean, graceful, and still drawing the occasional second look that reminds me I'm not entirely forgotten by the world. My son, Caleb, is 22. He lives with me while he finishes his university degree, balancing school with a part-time job at a small bookstore off South Congress. He's everything I once dreamed my child would become: bright, considerate, subtly attractive in that quiet, observant way. And he's in love. Her name is Lily. Blonde, charming, effortlessly sweet, the kind of young woman any mother is expected to welcome with open arms. And perhaps I should. But each time she steps into our home, trailing her floral scent behind her, laughing easily at something Caleb says, a tightness curls in my chest. Took me months to understand what it was. Not jealousy of her looks or her golden laugh or even her youth, but of what she now receives, what I used to have. Caleb's warmth, his attention, the way he lights up at her texts, or the urgency in his steps when he's late to meet her. It's a feeling I've tried to smother with deep breaths and chamomile tea. But it lingers, insistent. Last night was particularly rough. I was folding laundry when I heard their laughter from down the hallway. Her laugh was light, melodic, perfectly placed. I paused at my bedroom door, a shirt dangling from my hand. I stood there, unmoving, just listening. That sound belonged to someone who felt completely adored, entirely safe. Once that used to be me. Before he needed someone else more than me. Later I poured myself a glass of wine and sat outside, letting the moonlight bathe the patio. Caleb joined me after Lily left. Barefoot, loose-limbed, he looked younger, like the boy I used to read bedtime stories to. We didn't speak at first. Just shared that easy, long-earned quiet that belongs to people who've weathered life together. "You good, Mom?" he asked, turning to me. I gave him a smile too fast, too rehearsed. "Just a long day. You've been running yourself ragged," he said, concerned. "Maybe it's time you did something for yourself. Take a little vacation or something." I chuckled softly. "And go where? I can't remember the last time I planned something just for me." He leaned back, his arm resting along the top edge of the bench. Not touching me, but close enough that I could feel him there. Caleb's always had that grounding presence. Ever since he was small, being near him made me feel like I had a center. "You deserve more than laundry and lesson plans," he said. I turned to face him. His features half lit in the glow of the porch lamp. There was a quiet intensity in his eyes that tugged at something deep inside me. He looked like his father once did, before bitterness clouded everything. "You've changed," I murmured, mostly to myself. He smiled. "You keep saying that lately." Because it's true. The way his jawline sharpens by dusk, the way he carries himself now, how his voice has deepened. He's no longer the child I raised. And maybe that's where the ache begins. Soon after, I excused myself, blaming tiredness and too much wine. But really, I needed to escape him and myself, and everything swirling too close to the surface. Lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling, trying to remember the last time someone touched me in a way that made me feel desired. Not out of duty or routine, but truly seen. I couldn't recall. Sometime past midnight, I heard Caleb's steps down the hallway. Soft, familiar, heading to the kitchen like he used to as a teenager. That quiet rhythm, unchanged by years, stirred something I didn't want to name. A memory, a longing. A shadow of something that has no place in my life, yet refuses to leave. The next morning, sunlight slipped gently through my curtains, painting golden lines across the floorboards. I woke before my alarm, as I always do. My body too set in its ways to allow extra rest, even when it's needed most. I stretched, heard the quiet clicks of joints adjusting, and headed barefoot into the kitchen. The house was silent. Caleb had already left, likely for class or to meet Lily. Probably her. I told myself the quiet was welcome, that I preferred mornings like this. But as I sipped my coffee by the window, staring into our little backyard garden, a slow ache pressed against my ribs. It had always been the two of us. Ever since the divorce, Caleb was my constant, my anchor, my reason. When Caleb was small, he used to sneak into my bed after bad dreams. He'd curl into me like I was the one place in the world where everything was okay. Now he curled up beside someone else. Someone new. And that's how it should be. I told myself that over and over. He deserved love, partnership, the kind of connection I stopped hoping for long ago. But the space he used to fill next to me now felt like a bruise I kept touching. Soft, quiet, constant. That afternoon I led my usual yoga class at the studio. My body moved through each pose on autopilot. My voice even and reassuring as I guided my students from stretch to balance. Outwardly I was composed. Inwardly I was untethered. My mind kept drifting, past and present looping into a quiet storm I couldn't shake. When class ended, I stayed behind in the empty room, seated cross-legged, watching my reflection in the mirrored wall. The woman looking back at me was graceful, poised, still strong. I studied the faint lines near her mouth, the shape of her shoulders, the long, lean arms that bore years of discipline. I still looked good. I knew that. But it had been ages since someone had really seen me, not just glanced but looked. When I walked into the house, I found Caleb in the kitchen, barefoot as always. The smell of garlic and citrus floated in the air, and I heard the soft sizzle of a skillet. "You're home earlier than I expected," I said, dropping my keys into the dish by the door. He turned with a bright smile. "Lily's working a later shift, so I thought I'd make dinner." He was wearing that old gray tee, the one I never threw away because it always fit him just right, hugging his shoulders with that lived-in softness. His hair was still damp, and the easy energy he brought into the room made it feel somehow warmer, brighter. "Smells incredible," I said, setting my bag down on the counter. "Lemon herb chicken," he replied, flipping the pieces with care. "Still your favorite, right?" That hit deeper than I expected. He remembered. We ate together, just the two of us, like we used to before Lily began filling more of his evenings. Conversation flowed, light and familiar. Work stories, class updates, shared moments from the week. But beneath it all, I felt that same silent pull inside me. Steady and slow like gravity. Always there. After dinner, we drifted into the living room. He sank into the couch, stretching out, then patted the cushion next to him like he used to when he was little. "Sit with me. Just for a bit." I hesitated, then joined him, folding one leg underneath myself. He picked a movie he loved. I couldn't even follow the plot. My thoughts were too loud. I noticed everything else. The way his arm rested casually along the back of the couch. The way his eyes flicked toward me when he thought I wasn't paying attention. His laugh still made my chest ache with memory. I used to be everything to him. His world. And now I was just trying to stay in orbit, hoping not to lose myself in the pull again. Midway through the film, I reached for the throw blanket and draped it over us. It was habit, comfort. But when the fabric brushed his arm, Caleb shifted slightly, closing the gap between us. Just a breath. Gesture. But it lingered. Neither of us said anything. We sat like that for a long while. Then he turned toward me. His voice quiet. "You've seemed different lately. Are you okay?" I nodded too quickly. "Just a little worn out. Work's been non-stop." His gaze searched mine for a beat. "You're not seeing anyone, are you?" That question startled me. I blinked. "No. Why?" He shrugged, eyes dropping for a second before returning to my face. "I don't know. Just, you're beautiful. I guess I'm surprised no one's noticed." His words struck harder than I expected. I gave him a small smile, one I hoped didn't reveal too much, and stayed silent. But my heartbeat didn't. Later that night, as I lay beneath the blankets, I kept hearing his voice in my head. You're beautiful. It wasn't just the words. It was how they left his lips. Like he meant them. Like he hadn't said something kind out of habit, but something that had been sitting inside him for a while. The house had fallen into that deep nighttime stillness. Every creak, every whisper of wind outside seemed louder in the quiet. I'd gone to bed early. At least that was my excuse. In truth, I just needed distance from my thoughts. From him. From everything. I had just turned off the bedside lamp when I heard the soft sound of the front door. Caleb was back. I listened for the usual kitchen noises. Fridge door, snack wrappers, but none came. Just the slow steps of him climbing the stairs. And then, a gentle knock. Come in, I said, keeping my voice even. The door opened slowly. Caleb stood there, lit softly from behind by the hallway light. His shoulders were slouched, his hands tucked in his hoodie pocket, and his eyes, red-rimmed, heavy. He didn't say anything. Instead, he crossed the room and sank to his knees beside the bed. Then, without warning, he leaned in, pressing his forehead into my stomach, just like he used to when the world overwhelmed him. And just like back then, I reached for him instinctively, my hand slipping into his hair. He breathed out shakily against me, and my heart broke open. She ended things, Caleb whispered, his voice barely audible against the quiet hum of the room. Or, she was going to. I could see it in her face. I didn't wait for her to actually say it. I just walked out. I exhaled slowly, my other hand finding its way to his shoulder. I'm sorry, sweetheart. He shook his head, still pressing his forehead to my stomach. It doesn't even hurt like I thought it would, he said after a moment. What hurts is how unsurprised I feel. My heart twisted. I didn't know what words could fix that kind of hollow. I could feel the grief rolling off him in waves, crashing into my own chest like they were mine to bear too. I slid my fingers gently through his hair, moving in slow, steady strokes that seemed to settle him. You gave it everything you had, I murmured. That's all anyone can do. He didn't move. Just stayed there, breathing in short, uneven bursts, tucked into me in a way that felt achingly familiar, and entirely different. It had been years since I'd comforted him like this. But he wasn't a child anymore. And I wasn't comforting a boy. I was holding a man who had come undone. Eventually he lifted his head. His eyes met mine in the low light, the amber from the hallway casting soft shadows across his face. I saw everything there. Heartbreak, disorientation. And something else I didn't want to name. I didn't know where else to go, he said, voice thick with emotion. You're always safe here, I whispered, barely louder than breath. Always. His gaze flickered. For just a second it dropped to my mouth. It was quick, but I noticed. Before I could process the weight of that glance, he leaned in. His lips brushed mine. It wasn't long. A moment suspended between stillness and shock. More breath than kiss. A soft press, gone almost as quickly as it came. He pulled back instantly, eyes wide, expression startled. I didn't mean to, he said, his voice ragged. I'm sorry. But I hadn't moved. My hand was still gently curled into the back of his neck, fingertips resting along the line of his jaw. My heart pounded, loud and wild. My thoughts blurred into a storm I couldn't quiet. He was still kneeling, still so close, still watching me with that same open, broken look. I didn't mean to, he said again, softer, but he didn't step away. And I didn't push him. We sat in silence, suspended in a moment too heavy to name. I couldn't think, couldn't speak. I could only feel, the rhythm of his breath, the warmth of his skin, the echo of that kiss lingering like a secret on my lips. I should have stopped it. I should have said something. But instead, I ran my fingers through his hair once more, slow and gentle, like I had when he was young. Like he was still my world. And I knew. Everything had shifted. The days that followed blurred like rain on glass. No words were exchanged about what had happened. Not the kiss. Not the way he had looked at me afterward. Not the way I'd let my hand linger on his cheek as he left the room. But everything was different. We moved around each other carefully now, like gravity had tilted, and we were afraid to lose our balance. He stayed in more, spoke less. His eyes held a weight that didn't lift, even when he smiled. And I was trying not to lose myself in something I couldn't define. One evening the rain came, soft and steady, a hush over the rooftops. I curled up on the couch with a book in my lap I hadn't turned a page of in 20 minutes. The fire was low. Shadows flickered across the walls. I heard his footsteps before I saw him. That familiar, careful rhythm he always had when he didn't want to disturb me. He paused in the doorway. "Can I sit with you?" He nodded. He settled beside me, close enough that the sides of our legs brushed. We didn't talk for a long time. Just sat in that quiet, held by firelight and rainfall. Eventually, his voice broke the silence. It's felt different. Since that night. I didn't pretend not to understand. "I know. I didn't mean for it to happen," he said. But he didn't finish the thought. Just looked down at his hands, fingers laced tight. Then he added, "But I don't regret it." I turned to him slowly, searching his face. "You don't?" He met my eyes. "Do you?" The question landed between us, still and sharp. After a pause I answered, "No. But I don't know what it means." He exhaled, something easing in his shoulders. "Maybe it just means we both needed something. Something we couldn't explain." My chest tightened. His words weren't wrong. Not then. Not in the hush of that room with rain tapping at the windows and warmth tucked between us. "It's not simple," I said quietly. "No," he agreed. "But maybe it doesn't have to be." He reached for my hand. We sat like that for a long time. Fingers entwined. The silence no longer heavy, but soft. Breath met breath. Presence filled the space where words failed. The way my thumb settled against his knuckles felt like something familiar. Something that had always been waiting. He didn't return to his room that night. He didn't ask. And I didn't tell him to go. He drifted off next to me on the couch, his head leaning gently against my shoulder, one arm tucked around my waist as if instinctively searching for a safe harbor. In that stillness we weren't mother and son. Not entirely. We were just two people aching for something unnamed, something lost to time, something suddenly too close to ignore. And maybe, in that quiet space, that was all we needed to be. His breath came soft and steady against my side, and I could feel the weight of his trust in the way his fingers curled lightly over my hip. There was no tension in him, only peace. The kind that comes when you've stopped pretending. I glanced down at him. His eyelashes brushed the curve of his cheek. His lips were parted slightly, the edges soft from sleep. He looked younger like that. Not in years but in spirit. Unburdened for once. It made something in me tremble. 'Cause I knew. This kind of closeness didn't stay hidden. Not forever. We had already stepped over a line that couldn't be erased. Whatever this was, whatever it would become, it was no longer just a flicker. It was a spark catching fire. Quiet, slow, but impossible to ignore. And we were sinking deeper. Together.